following is a special presentation of HBO's Sports of the 20th Century.
Here's what I want on my tombstone. He never lived long enough to see the Red Sox win it all. People will understand, whether it's 50 years from now, or 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, they'll understand that message. There is something mystical about this franchise.
When Pesky got the ball and they turned around and throw, he didn't know where to throw it to.
Why didn't Enos Slaughter stop at third base? Something was working against him, something beyond the control and the understanding of anybody.
Why are you throwing that type of pitch in a game like this?
I blame the curse.
There was a better chance that a bolt was going to fall out of the sky than Bucky Dent was going to hit a home run.
There is some kind of a curse. All these things cannot be coincidences.
If you go through the obituaries, you'll see a lot of Red Sox references. Remember them winning in 1918 or hoped it would happen in their lifetime, and it didn't. Until they do, you look at the weird things that happen.
I do think there's a curse, because you can't get that close that many times and fail.
It just couldn't have really happened. It had to have been a movie or somebody's idea of a cruel joke.
Every year, it gets more and more mystifying. It really started with the trading of Babe Ruth, and it continues to this very day.
You grow up in this town. Your parents are Red Sox fans. Your grandparents are Red Sox fans. You become a Red Sox fan, and you get tortured for the rest of your life.
Being a Red Sox fan is like a Charles Dickens novel. Everyone is just trying to survive the situation. For me, there's a psychological war in my own mind dealing with each season.
Did you just say 1986 to me?
The assumption that something bad will happen, that every Red Sox ship has a leak and every leak is big enough to sink the ship.
Every year you say, well, they're not going to get me again. They're not going to get me again. Then all of a sudden you go, I think this is it. And they got you again, and then bango, you're in the toilet again.
It's almost an existential motif, the myth of Sisyphus, where you're rolling that rock up a hill and you think you're finally there, it rolls right down again.
Everybody remembers the story of Job. Job is this guy whose life is going great, and all of a sudden he loses all his property. His children are sick. The Red Sox are Job. You know, this is a Jobian existence. Everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden, boom.
It's not just loss, but crushing loss.
It's like watching The Wizard of Oz, and then Dorothy dies at the end. You know, doesn't just die, she's like ripped apart by the flying monkeys, and Toto eats her remains, and the end, credits roll.
Masochism. It's masochism. It's sadomasochism.
If the good guy dies in the end in every production since 1918, you might get a little fatalistic, don't you think?
For more than 100 years, the Boston Red Sox, my team, have been the most interesting in baseball. With a rich and often painful past that's been both complex and endearing. The history of the Red Sox is woven in the fabric of each of the 6 New England states. Its story embedded in generations. Baseball is a religion in New England. Our cathedral, a ballpark built in 1912 that is as famous as the team itself. Given the Red Sox success throughout the years, it's hard to believe it's been more than 8 decades since my team has won the World Series. 4 times the Sox have taken the Fall Classic to its limit. 4 times they've lost Game 7, each more painful than the one before. Some Sox fans actually choose to believe there must be a reason for the ungodly losses and monumental disappointments. That perhaps a powerful force from the past has cursed our storied franchise. What else could explain the suffering and lament that has followed our team since the heady days of 1918 and before? When the Boston Red Sox, the very same Boston Red Sox who have disappointed us with such regularity, were launched as a dynasty.
When Ban Johnson created the American League, he determined very early on that the team in Boston was going to be one of his flagship franchises. Boston had this aura that they were the team that was always going to win. One way or another, Boston was going to come out on top.
With great pitching and defense, Boston won 5 of the first 15 World Series, including 1903 with the immortal Cy Young on the mound. In 1912, the Sox christened Fenway Park with a second championship and won again in 1915, 1916, and 1918. The pitching star of that team was Babe Ruth, who the Sox had bought from an industrial league in Baltimore in 1914. Ruth was only 19 years old, but he won big right away.
He won 18 games. Next year, 1916 and 1917, he won 23 and 24 games. In the World Series in 1918, he pitched a shutout and then pitched 7 scoreless innings to extend his scoreless streak to 29 innings, which was the record for more than 40 years. He was a sensational pitcher, but his hitting began to take over, and he loved to hit. He loved the sense of hitting.
In 1919, the Babe led the American League with 29 home runs, which was more than all but 5 teams in baseball. Ruth was the Red Sox principal attraction, the team's biggest draw. But prior to the 1920 season, Boston owner Harry Frazee, a New York theater producer, sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. That single transaction, perhaps the most famous and curious in sports history, defined the Red Sox franchise. And Frazee, from that moment on, he was pegged Boston's all-time villain, the buffoon who peddled the Babe.
He cared more about his theater ventures than he did his baseball team, and saw a chance to get a lot of cash and had to go with it.
It was sad news. They were taking all their chance of winning in the big leagues out of their hands. They were turning it over to New York. New York never was able to beat the Red Sox before this. The Red Sox could never beat New York after the sale either.
Ruth goes there, they build the ballpark, and they become this dynasty. Frazee's name becomes mud, and the Red Sox go the exact opposite direction, become the worst they ever were. In terms of his obligation to the fans, I don't see how he can be defended.
Almost everything that people think they know about Harry Frazee is thoroughly incorrect. According to the legend, Frazee was this failed theatrical producer, was just a real screw-up who bought the Red Sox and didn't really have the money to do it, really didn't care about baseball.
He's broke, he needs to pay his bills, and he has no money. So he sold Babe Ruth, his only big commodity.
So they sell him for money so that they can fund a play in New York. I mean, it's ludicrous.
He took the money and he produced a musical called No No Nanette. Not only do I hate that musical, but I hate all musicals. I remember as a kid, I hated Nanette Fabray. And whenever I heard her name, I'd go, hate her. Hate her. Just based on the first name.
If there was no play, then we could have kept him for the whole time. It's just so bad that they had to trade him just for this one play.
Harry Frazee was sitting in a taxi, and he was bragging that he sold Ruth, and the cab driver slammed the brakes, pulled him out, and punched him in the nose.
All of that is incorrect. The notion that Ruth was sold to produce No No Nanette, which wasn't on Broadway for 5 more years. It's just absurd. But Harry Frazee becomes the perfect patsy in this town because he's from New York and he's dead.
Whether or not one is wild about Harry, there's little dispute that the Babe's behavior in Boston, on and off the field, had become difficult to tolerate.
The area around the Fenway was a notorious red light district. Day after day, night after night, he'd go into these brothels, he'd have his fun, wine, women, and song, and he'd be thrown into the alleys behind the places, and they'd have to pick him up every day and haul him to the ballpark. He also, at various points, would try to politic for changes in management of the team. He would jump the club to go play an exhibition that would fill his own pocket with $400 or $500, and he did so repeatedly and regularly. 1919 comes along, the Red Sox are out of the race, he doesn't want to pitch anymore, and he's also hitting 200. The season's over. Ruth is a total bust. Now, he goes on from June 1st through the remainder of the year, hits 27 home runs. No one's ever done this before, and none of it means anything in terms of the Red Sox record. They finished 6th. At the time the deal is made, 20 longtime Boston baseball figures are asked, is this a good deal or not? To a man, they think Frazee is doing the smart thing. You're being offered more money than anybody's been offered for a player before. Take it.
Frazee comes out and gives a very lengthy defense of his actions here. The Yankees are taking quite a gamble, is one of his quotes. It's 26 World Championships to 0 since the Yankees took that big gamble. So this hasn't gone well since that deal went down.
That gap, the almost incomprehensible divide between the fortunes of the two close rivals, has left those of us in Boston intensely bitter. And if you think about it, understandably envious. If you saw those championship flags, you'd be jealous too.
You have to have a villain in all great shows, and the Yankees are the villain. The Yankees are evil. They're oil, they're insurance companies, they're everything that we don't like in our life.
I mean hate, like hatred, like that bad quality in human beings to hate. I hate them. I hate Yankee fans. I hate their team. I'm filled with rage.
If you had said to my dad that one day we would watch Wade Boggs riding a horse around Yankee Stadium to celebrate his championship with the Yankees, his head would have blown up.
If I had the chance, I'd go down to Yankee Stadium and rip all the monuments down, take all the flags, bring them back to Boston like a pillaging marauder.
He likes the Yankees, I like the Red Sox. Well, I mean, how do you get along? We don't.
The Patriots won the Super Bowl. After the Patriots won, the people were so excited, then you had this impromptu party going on, and in the middle of it, a Yankee suck chant broke out. Guarantee you that if the Giants win the Super Bowl, nobody's chanting Boston sucks in Times Square.
Kind of looking around, wondering what prompted this. Well, a few beers and 80 years of failure is what prompts it.
In those 80 years of failure, many at the hands of the Yankees, seasons come and seasons go, but not 1978.
This is supposed to be the best team they've ever had. They're just blowing everybody out. Just pedal to the metal.
The Red Sox couldn't do anything wrong. The Yankees couldn't do anything right.
I was working in Jacksonville, Florida, and when the Red Sox were 14.5 games in front, I decided to quit my job down there to come home because I wanted to be at home when the Red Sox finally won the whole thing.
Everything seemed great. And then
September came, and somebody turned the baseball world upside down.
It was a gradual decline, like somebody with a disease getting sicker by the day.
the Yankees started crawling up at the standings. The Red Sox were creeping down.
You could hear him coming. You could see him coming. You knew that it was going to come down to that 4-game series in September.
The Yankees rolled into town, scored like 100,000 runs.
Took their bats from the on-deck circle and beat each member of the Red Sox over the head with them. It was ugly. It's forever been known as the Boston Massacre.
The Yanks outscored the Sox 42-9 in that 4-game sweep. We were down but not out, and fought back to tie the Yankees on the last day of the season. That set up a 1-game playoff. New York versus Boston at Fenway. Winner takes the division. After 6, the Sox led 2-0. Then in the 7th, with 2 on and 2 out, up comes the unimposing Bucky Dent.
Tension eases somewhat here at Fenway. With 2 out in the shortstop, Bucky Dent coming up.
I can remember that moment when Bucky Dent came up and thinking, this is no problem. You know, we're out of the inning.
Fouls his pitch off his foot.
He's hopping around like the Three Stooges were all laughing at him. I mean, just waiting for the guy to get put away.
But Dent, the previous pitch, broke his bat.
It was a long pause while he went to get another bat.
While he was putting the pine tar on it, instead of warming up, Torres is just standing there. He's gazing around, looking at the crowd. La-di-da-di-da.
And as soon as Dent gets back into the batter's box,
The next pitch. Boom.
And as soon as the ball lofted into the air,
it's a pop-up, it's a fly ball.
Everybody thought it was a fly ball.
But then it started to sail, drifts, and sail, and drifts, and sail.
Yastrzemski goes back.
Oh, no.
He goes back.
Oh, no.
He's right next to the wall.
and it just dropped into the screen ever so softly.
Ball hit hard to left field. Yastrzemski goes back. He looks up. It's going to be out of here. A home run for Bucky Dent.
You could see Yastrzemski's knees buckle.
He physically slumps
as if he'd been punched in the stomach.
And then I saw him go down to his knees and punch the ground, and it was like the air went out of the ballpark.
It was this incredible silence. You could actually hear Steinbrenner clapping by the dugout. It was so quiet elsewhere in the park. It was amazing, and of all the hitters, this guy had hit 4 home runs all year.
Bucky Dent. Bucky Dent was like some utility schmo.
And obviously, he's just become part of the language up here in Boston.
Bucky Dent.
Bucky Dent!
The name sounds like a swear, doesn't it? Bucky Dent. You Bucky Dent.
You Bucky Dent bastard. Yeah, Jesus.
He has a new middle name, which we're not allowed to say on TV.
Bucky Bleepin' Dent.
Bucky Bleepin' Dent.
Maybe you can say it on HBO.
Bucky fucking Dent.
Every time I go up there, they always put my middle initial up there, you know, BF Dent.
As if Dent's homer wasn't torture enough, the game would rest in the arms of our hero, Carl Yastrzemski.
2 down. Burleson at third. 5-4 Yankees. Bottom of the 9th inning. And he pops it up. Greg Nettles. He makes the catch. And
The headline in the paper was Destiny 5, Red Sox 4. And I thought, that says it all.
October 2nd, 1978 is a gloomy day for the Boston Red Sox.
Historically, the Red Sox have been anything but Destiny's team. Fate and fortune and divine intervention, others have that, not us. Providence, that's in Rhode Island. Doomsday prophecies, infamous figures, acts of chronic folly. Now that's Red Sox baseball. Most folks believe you can trace the start of the Sox misfortune to the 46th series. Game 7, Johnny Pesky holds the ball for a split second while Enos Slaughter scores the series winning run all the way from first. How many times does that happen? 2 years later, Denny Galehouse was mysteriously picked to start a playoff game against the Indians. Why him? A nobody, while other more worthy pitchers sat. Of course, Denny was bombed. The Indians went to the 48th series, and the Red Sox went home. How about Louis Aparicio, a guy the Sox got for his legs, slipping as he heads for home? Instead of scoring, Louis scrambles back, finds a confused Yaz at third, and the 72 pennant goes up in smoke. Sadly, there's more. Who else but the Sox could dream the impossible dream, then wake up and be reminded of the nightmare, the horror of seeing Tony Conigliaro, New England's own Tony C., his career shattered in the blink of an eye. And what other team could take one of the great moments in World Series history, stay fair, and trump that October magic with October misery? Bad karma, poor choices, rotten luck, whatever. Like I said, that's Red Sox baseball.
Fans see them as a continuum in this long soap opera comic tragedy that's unfolded over the last 80 years. There is some connection between what happens now and what happened in 1978 and what happened in 1949 and what happened in 1919. There is some common thread that runs through here.
Why do all these bad things happen to the Red Sox?
All these things cannot be coincidences.
There's some higher power at work.
There's a conspiracy here somewhere.
He had no idea where that ball was. It was in the sun. This could have turned it around. Burleson could have possibly scored if the ball gets by. You see him recover.
There is some kind of a curse.
There is a curse.
Do I believe in curses? In my business? A little bit.
You never should have traded Ruth, man. Never should have traded him. He cursed us.
It's the only thing that seems out there. You know, different players have come and gone, different general managers. The one thing that never changes is Babe Ruth was defamed, the greatest ball player who ever lived.
And all you really have to do is look at Dwight Evans for the whole story. It's worth more than 1,000 words.
When you come this close this many times, you just start to look toward the larger forces. That's what the curse is about. Superstition over science. It's just a fun way to explain the unexplainable, which is the Red Sox. A classic case a couple years ago, Pedro Martinez calls out the Babe for no apparent reason.
I don't believe in them curses. Wake up to them Bambino and have me face him. Maybe I'll drill him in the ass.
Pedro gets hurt, never wins another game the rest of the year. Don't be taunting the big guy.
Whether or not you choose to believe in the afterlife, or in this case, the curse of the Bambino, this much is true. In the Red Sox nation, there are those who are obsessed with its possibility, and others so sure it exists, they are fanatic about having the curse reversed.
They should get together with the owners and some voodoo people and figure out what to do. We need to get some experts and come up with something that's going to take the curse off.
Hey, Mr. Babe, please give us a break. How much more can the Red Sox fans take? In the annals of baseball, none can be worse than the terrible tale of Babe Ruth's curse.
Every year somebody does something. Had Father Guido Sarducci exorcising the spirit.
I guarantee next year Boston win the World Series. In the annals of baseball, none can be worse than the terrible tale of Babe Ruth's curse. All the fans agree the trade was...
One priest who was asked to perform an exorcism, which they haven't done for several centuries.
So please let us win.
It's just sprawled into so many things.
Can you believe this? A play based on the misfortunes of the Red Sox. Ouch! I can't take it anymore! And they call it, what else? The Curse of the Bambino.
Let's face it, some of the best theater has been based in tragedy.
You better watch out, Barry, because the Babe is leaving town. The Babe grabbed the train and left sad old Beantown.
When I was going to Mount Everest base camp, I said to my wife, I'm going to talk to the Lama over in Nepal. And I said, this guy's got incredible powers. And I told him, I want to break the curse of the Bambino. And he told me what to do. Put the Red Sox cap on the summit, which he blessed, and take the Yankees cap back down the base camp and burn it as an offering to the gods. The Red Sox were still in first place, and then they fell apart.
That's a terrible tale of Babe Ruth's curse.
The symbolic aspect of the balloon was the lifting symbolically of the curse.
But like the Sox, the balloon was going nowhere.
Perhaps we didn't lift it high enough.
Nothing can be worse than the terrible tale of Babe Ruth's curse.
You had to have kind of a mass curse removal festival. Kiss the ground that Babe is being grown in. That's what we were trying to provide, was a place where people could come and walk around the Babe and walk through the Babe's hat and the Babe's eyes and up through his nose and his broad shoulders. And, you know, maybe by giving the Babe a little walking over, you could help lift the spirits. As soon as we opened with the Babe, we had bad weather, we had vandalism. We've never had vandalism before. We became cursed, I think, a little bit for trying to exorcise the curse.
It's a serene spot west of Boston that may just hold the key to the curse of the Bambino. It is well documented that Babe Ruth rented this cottage here in Sudbury during his time with the Red Sox, and he loved to party with family and friends here. We also understand sometime during the winter of 1917, 1918, he was hanging around the piano playing with friends as well as his wife when he suddenly thought it would be hilarious to somehow get that piano from the cottage down to the lake. The Babe did get it out onto the ice, but either it broke or the ice melted, and this is where the piano now sits.
The piano has been at the bottom of this pond for 85 years, or as long as the Red Sox haven't won a World Series. If we can find it and restore it, perhaps the baseball gods will look favorably upon this and grant us a World Series. So if there's a curse breaker, I feel the piano is it.
In the annals of baseball, none can
So far, dive teams have scoured the area unsuccessfully.
I'm against cloning, but since we have them already, why don't we just clone them and get like 10 Teds?
Nothing be worse than a terrible tale.
Get like a starting lineup, all Teds.
All the fans agree.
The Yankees have all the money, let's get all the clones.
Wasn't our fault, babe.
I wish I had an answer, but I don't.
As soon as they win one, it all goes away. Until they do, it stays out there.
As a metaphor for the futility of the Red Sox, it's got a nice ring to it. But their failures have nothing whatsoever to do with Babe Ruth.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
There's no curse of the Bambino.
It's not some evil force or some curse. There's always an incident you can point at. Bill Lee did not throw the right pitch.
There's his blooper pitch. There it is. A high drive. He was waiting for that one. That one is gone over everything.
He made the mistake out there. No curse. Nothing overtook Bill Lee's body, though I do believe aliens might have at one time.
This whole idea of diving for a piano and creating all this utter nonsense is an insult to anyone's intelligence.
You know, unless you're a nitwit. Typical. Thumb-sucking New England ragtime. Why are the baseball gods so fickle? Why are we treated this way? Ah, woe is us. When, blah, blah, blah.
PWNC Sears. Provincial, whining, narcissistic, chronic complainers.
Anything but the facts are used as a crutch, as an excuse for why they haven't won.
We're cursed. And maybe it's easier to accept a curse. It takes the heat off.
It's better to point fingers and say it's the damn Bambino. It's Harry Frazee. Yeah, that's why.
That's the attraction of the curse. It seems to explain everything. It's cute. It fits. Oh, that's why we've lost. We don't have to examine the real history.
If you study the real history of the club, you'll realize that there's a reason why they've won and lost.
You win or lose by who picks your talent. You bring in the best players, you win. You give me the best team, and you can have the curse on your side. We'll see who wins.
Now, what's better than a warm summer night at Fenway Park? But if you look at it another way, it just might be that the very place we most identify with is, in the eyes of many, a very big reason the Sox haven't been able to win a championship in more than 80 years.
I love Fenway Park, but it's the only thing that hasn't changed in the 80-whatever years since we've won. Players have changed, ownership has finally changed, but the park stays the same. And if there's a curse, I think it's the park. I think there's something about playing in that park.
Anyone who's been around the team for a period of time has to acknowledge that the ballpark has hurt this franchise in many, many more ways than it has helped.
They have almost always tried to tailor the team to the contours of the ballpark. The green monster, the left field wall, big right-handed hitter, strong, get ball over the wall.
The Red Sox, over the years, have gone out and tried to get that certain individual, that certain player who has that perfect Fenway Park swing. Let's get that guy because you know what? He's hitting 35 home runs now. We bring him in here, he can hit 55 with that swing.
Jimmy Fox, Rudy York, Dick Gurnett, Walter Dropo, Vern Stevens.
Dick Stewart was the first one I remember. He was everything you'd expect from a right-handed slugger with the Red Sox. He didn't care about anything except hitting home runs.
Over the years, they have been this big, slow, lumbering type of team.
They'll never steal a base.
They can't go from first to third on a base hit.
They'll never move a runner along. They're defensively hopeless.
They never hit and run. They never bunted. They couldn't beat you any other way. And they never quite got it, that the way you win the whole thing is have the best pitching. If you play half your games in Fenway Park, you have to have great pitching.
He struck him out.
Lately, they've given up the ghost a bit, but the parochialism that's inherent in Greater Boston, in New England really, has always been epidemic within the Red Sox organization. Build a ball club for 81 home games, as if what happened when you went past Lake Quinsigamond in Worcester didn't really count.
You still have to play half of your schedule in somebody else's ballpark. They never thought of that. Amazing. Years went by, decades even.
In the year 2018, it'll be 100 years since they won their last championship. They're going to study what every team in sports has done, because by 2018, every single team in sports will have won a championship: hockey, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, except the Red Sox. So they'll make a study of this thing. Then they'll take the report that they paid a consultant hundreds of thousands of dollars for, they'll take it and they'll stick it in a drawer and they'll not read it. It's funny in one sense, but in another sense, to those that take it really serious, it's a tragedy.
There's something else to consider, and it's a tragedy of a different sort. The Red Sox shameful scorecard on race relations.
I grew up in Dorchester, which is a predominantly black neighborhood, and we were a mile and a half away from Fenway, but we had never been to games. Nobody talked about going to games. None of the adults rooted for the Red Sox. My uncle used to tell me, why would I go to Fenway just to get beat up? If you really look at the history of the Boston Red Sox, it's not a lot of fun.
Actually, it's appalling. The Red Sox were the last team in the majors to embrace integration. It was the middle of 1959 when Pumpsie Green finally came to Boston. That's a full 12 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, more than 2 after he retired. The Sox could have made history if that very same Jackie Robinson wasn't so casually dismissed in 1945.
There were some civic forces that felt the war's over, the blacks had served in the war, they ought to get a chance in baseball. For some reason, Robinson turned up at Fenway Park for a tryout. Somebody yelled out, "What's that nigger doing here? Get him out of here."
4 years later, the Sox had a chance to sign Willie Mays for $5,000. But the racially suspect Tom Yawkey, whose family owned the team for nearly 6 decades, agreed with his scouts, who reportedly claimed that Willie wasn't their type of player.
They were a racist team, there's no doubt about that, an old boys club.
That was the Yawkey plantation mentality. The Yawkeys were right out of Tennessee Williams.
As much as the Red Sox are connected with New England, they're connected to Tom Yawkey. When you look at his pedigree in the game, when you look at the people who taught him how to be a baseball man, they are Southern rednecks. Tom Yawkey learned the game from the Detroit Tigers. His uncle was an owner of the club, and the Detroit Tigers were one of the most racist teams in baseball, just like the Red Sox and the Yankees. Ty Cobb was his first mentor. It explains where his attitudes came from. There was no difference in whether or not Tom Yawkey wasn't overt or covert racist, or if he was a racist at all. What you do know is his track record.
Everybody is always asking, in terms of Tom Yawkey, well, where's the smoking gun? Where's the document where he uses the N-word? Yawkey didn't leave a document like that, but he did leave a document. He left a document on the field for decades. Just look at it. You know, you want proof? There it is.
Not only is that something that's distasteful from a racial standpoint, but from a competitive standpoint. If you're a Red Sox fan in the 1950s when your team was in last place every year, you say to yourself, what's going on here?
The Red Sox were sucking on the end of the tailpipe when these fabulous black ball players were making their mark, and we had a whole bunch of slow white guys.
The Sox paid dearly for that ignorant stance. From the 1950s through the mid-60s, they remained almost entirely white and downright mediocre, bottoming out in 1965 when they lost 100 games. During the late 60s, the racial balance of the Red Sox did improve. But over the next 2 decades, with little African-American presence in the organization, the team once again fell woefully short. Some players would soldier on as the lone, isolated black face on the field. Others, like Tommy Harper, a minor league instructor and former player, would file and win a racial discrimination suit against the team. And that was in 1985.
It's hard to overstate the amount of damage that perception did to this franchise. Boston as a city had a difficult enough time. With the busing crisis in the 1970s, gave the city a horrible reputation. To have the Red Sox layered on top of that as an organization that is institutionally racist also made that an exponential problem. Once baseball entered the free agent era.
In 1976, after free agency, now you've got a sea change in baseball. Now the players can control where they want to go. And now it's payback time. Now they get to say, you know what? I've heard too much about Boston and I don't want to play there. And so now the roles are reversed. From 1976 to 1992, the Red Sox did not sign a single black free agent. If you talk to black players about Boston, they will tell you, maybe I don't want to play there. Or I'll make sure it's written into my contract that I can never play there.
I don't think the curse is funny if indeed it becomes a silly excuse for some of these offenses. And these were historical offenses. The Red Sox stand for something. They have a place in the culture of this region. They speak for New England. They express some of our essence, I believe. Yes, essence. If it does represent some of what we are and what we're all about, then that baggage goes with it.
In each of the Red Sox 3 World Series appearances, 1946, 1967, and 1975, just one more win, and we'd have never heard of the curse of the Bambino. You could say the same about 1986, except 86 was so unnerving, so surreal, that even the most ardent realists began to think, maybe there is something to this curse. It started in the playoffs, Sox down 3-1. In the 9th, down 3, we rallied. With 2 outs, we still trailed 5-4, when Donnie Moore came in to face Dave Henderson.
To left field and deep, and it's gone! Unbelievable!
I can just see him just floating.
I was babysitting my new niece, Amanda, and I went crazy. I woke her up and she was screaming, and but I told her it was all for a good cause.
Those things never happened to the Red Sox.
Finally, it's our turn. Finally, we have a storybook finish, pulling out of the coffin and crush some other team's heart.
The Sox went on to win the series in 7 games, a reprieve of sorts for several decades of futility.
The comeback in the playoffs in '86 should have enabled them to forever put the idea of them being chokers behind. That should have been history. This team throws off all odds and comes back and beats you.
The World Series was next, and there was New York again. Only this time, the light at the end of the tunnel wasn't the Yanks. It was the Mets. With the Sox up 3-2, Game 6 went into the 10th inning. And again, Dave Henderson hit a dramatic home run. We even added another to take a 5-3 lead. 3 more outs. We just needed 3 more outs.
Wally Bachman came up. He flied out to Jim Rice, and I can still see Rice with the 2 hands catching it, bringing it down. 1 out.
1 away.
And then Keith Hernandez came up.
Center with Henderson going to run it down.
You know, again, the 2 hands. I mean, he has that little flip into the infield.
October 25th, 1986, bottom of the 10th, Red Sox up 5-3. 2 out was Gettysburg, July 3rd, right before Pickett's charge. It was really possible at that moment.
I was down in the bowels of Shea Stadium. I watched them roll those carts of champagne into that locker room. I watched them put the World Championship T-shirts on everybody's seat.
It was sewn up.
It was going to be the ultimate purging of everything.
I stood on the bar.
I'm going to have a heart attack.
I was sobbing.
I'm jumping up and down.
We got off the sofa, got off our chairs.
My nails were dug into my hands.
I've waited my whole life for this.
And all the people around me couldn't imagine why I was crying. And my brother turned around and he said, oh, she was the same way in 1918. I couldn't believe that my team was going to win. I was ecstatic.
People all over New England are holding babies in front of television screens.
I woke my son. I could not let him sleep. He would never forgive me. I carried him from the room. I brought him over to the couch, and I told him, come see something nobody's seen in 70 years.
And the Mets are down to their last out. And Gary Carter at the plate.
Gary Carter.
My brother picks up the telephone and starts dialing my uncle in New Jersey, who's the big Mets fan. The second the last out is made, they rush the field and the champagne comes out. His phone's going to ring. It's going to be us rubbing it in his face. My brother was just dialing. And then had his thumb over the last number.
And he pops it foul.
Getting one over, and there was a chance to make a play, and I remember thinking, no, I don't want it to end in a foul pop to the catcher. I want it to be classic. I want it to be a strikeout. And when the ball ended in the seats, I thought, great.
Lined into left field, base hit for Carter.
I remember Vin Scully saying,
And the Mets are still alive.
I said, yeah, right.
And with 2 out, representing the tying run, Kevin Mitchell.
I don't think Kevin Mitchell was wearing a cup or a jock or anything. He had been in the clubhouse making plane reservations back to San Diego. He was drinking a beer with Keith Hernandez.
Curveball, and that's going to be hit to center, base hit. And now suddenly with 2 out in the 10th inning, the tying runs are aboard, and Ray Knight will be the batter.
And now we're starting to sweat a little bit.
There was this sort of like pit at the bottom of your stomach forming.
The hairs start to prickle on the back of your neck. All I thought was, get it out. Get it out. Get it out.
Schiraldi's expression was like me in algebra class when I was called for my homework. My brother kept dialing.
And that's going to be hit into center field, base hit.
What?
Here comes Carter to score.
Oh, I can't believe this, but no, they're not going to blow this. It's impossible.
And the Mets refuse to go quietly. 5-4 Red Sox, and he's...
McNamara comes out. It signals for the bullpen. The gate opens up, and out comes Stanley. And I screamed, uh-oh, uh-oh. No, no.
Oh, God.
Oh, shit.
There's ever a guy that just epitomized a Red Sox loserdom, Bob Stanley. He just had that sad, kind of droopy face.
You have the tying run 90 feet away, and here's Mookie. Fouled on.
He got 2 strikes on Mookie.
They get to 1 strike away, not once, not twice,
Fouled away.
but 3 times.
Tension mounts some more. With 2 out in the 10th, 5-4 Red Sox. Ray Knight at first.
My quadriceps are tense, my patellas are bursting, my back's hurting because I haven't been able to jump up yet.
My brother, to his credit, kept dialing each pitch. But you got the sense of, oh, shit, something's going to happen.
He's going to go to the backstop. Here comes
What happened? What just happened?
I watched them wheel that champagne back out and grab those T-shirts and stuff them back in the bag.
It was really like a horror film. I couldn't believe my eyes.
We couldn't have dreamt this thing up.
I just turned to the bartender and said, give me everything on the top shelf and put it in a big glass.
No, it can't be happening. It just can't be happening. But it was.
My brother hung up the phone, and there was a sense of this game's lost.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson.
And then the unbelievable happened. The whole world slowed down for me.
It stopped time.
It was like watching a slow motion car accident.
It just couldn't have really happened. It had to have been a movie or somebody's idea of a cruel joke.
I was in complete, utter catatonic shock.
My son just collapsed. I picked him up and he was just sobbing. I felt like I'd done the worst thing to him a human being could do. I mean, to do that to your kid.
I didn't say a word. I just got up from the sofa and I walked up 2 flights of stairs to the bedroom, threw myself face first onto the bed, uncontrollably crying. I was so upset.
It really was an hour and a half after the game ended before I could even move.
That really pissed me off. Really pissed me off. Really, really pissed me off.
I was back in the 3rd grade in the Police Athletic League in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and my coach was saying, glove to the ground, glove to the ground. And I thought to myself, how can he not know this? Glove to the ground, come on, pick up the ball.
I just went over, turned off the TV, and told my wife that I was going to take a good long walk. I needed some solitude. What I didn't count on was the fact that there would be hundreds of Bostonians walking the streets of Newton, Massachusetts, crazed. I remember one elderly couple, and she looked up to me with blinking eyes and said, "Oh, we just wanted to see them win it one time in our lifetime." And I ran across an old guy walking his dog, and he looked at me with my Red Sox cap tilted aimlessly on my head, and he said, "Son, this is the darkest day in this town since Jack Kennedy was shot."
The Red Sox would go on to lose Game 7, blowing a 3-run lead. Still, it would be a simple ground ball that went through Bill Buckner's legs that would haunt us to this day.
I'll never forget Vin Scully's words.
There's a little roller up along first.
Little roller up along first.
Behind the bag.
Behind the bag.
Behind the bag.
It gets through Buckner.
It gets through Buckner.
Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
To this day, it actually physically hurts to look at. It's like staring at the sun. It's become the watershed moment in the history of the Red Sox.
86 gets more ghastly as time goes along. How they couldn't get that last out. The answer gets farther and farther away as time goes along. It's just impossible to fathom.
There's a quote from Requiem for a Nun. The past is never dead. It's not even past. And that's what Red Sox fans carry with them all the time. 1986, October 25th is right there. It's always right there.
86 is alive. It looms in every season since. And will until everybody who saw it is gone.
It takes a lot to get over that stuff. It does, it really does. It really just goes down deep into your psyche. I really used to laugh at people that talked about the cars, but I'm kind of becoming a believer.
After more than 3/4 of a century of frustrating losses and broken hearts, You might think the Red Sox would have lost a few fans over the years, but for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, in good years and in bad, the Boston Red Sox staunchly remain New England's team.
It's like the smell of a rose, or how you can explain the universe. How can you explain the popularity of the Boston Red Sox?
If we were all consumed with only winning, then we'd have walked away from them a long time ago.
We like traditions around here, and they're part of the tradition. Go to spring training, this is the year, it's all great. Play well through the summer, they get hot, and then in the fall you start to get nervous and they fall. And then all winter we complain about them and look forward to the next year, and it just keeps repeating itself over and over. It's the cycle of the seasons, it's part of the circle of life here in New England.
We complain about our politicians, we complain about the weather, we complain about the Red Sox. People from Boston who grew up watching the Red Sox, you can always share in your pain and trade one painful story for the next.
Red Sox fans wear the tag long-suffering Red Sox fan like a badge of honor. Deep down inside, I think we enjoy the misery. I think we enjoy being punished.
But you have to realize that in New England, you're coming out of a Puritan tradition of we deserve to suffer.
We were founded by Puritans and Calvinists as hardworking, suffering people. You weren't allowed to have fun. You had to go to church all the time, get bonked on the head if you weren't paying attention.
Perhaps the Red Sox represent some part of us we don't recognize or admit to any other way, some part of us that we know is beaten before it starts, but yet we love it anyway.
It's like a guy with women. Are you going to give him up? No, of course not. She's going to break your heart, going to throw you out, going to change the locks, but you're going to be right back pounding at the door the next spring.
The Red Sox are as much a part of New England as Paul Revere's house, as Cape Cod, as JFK, as the Bunker Hill Monument. It's just part of New England. It's just part of something that you must do.
It's about caring about something. This passion is so ingrained in me for so many years that I'm never going to feel differently. It reminds you of home. It reminds you of your childhood. It just fills you.
It runs in your blood. In '67, the first word that they taught me how to write was Yaz. And I used to write it like as an autograph for people in the neighborhood, like the mailman or the guys on the garbage truck. By the time I was in high school, they pretty much said, okay, knock it off. You can put the pencil away.
It'll be very easy to root for a team that wins every year. That's no challenge. This gives me character.
The Red Sox are part of the landscape of an imperfect world.
Being a Red Sox fan is simply being a human being, getting used to what happens to people. This is a difficult life, and the Red Sox are a difficult team.
Most people's lives are rather disappointing. You don't always live up to what you expect that you would do in your life.
But there's always hope.
Knowing that we get another shot every year, for me, that makes it all worth it.
I buy a lottery ticket every week at the Massachusetts Lottery, and I enjoy being a Red Sox fan. And I know it's like the lottery, 6 million to 1 that they're going to win it all. But it doesn't make any difference to me because as long as the hope is there.
I can't live even a day without hope. Hope keeps us going. Every Rosh Hashanah, I add Red Sox into my prayers, knowing that all prayers are not always answered.
It's all about the fall of man and about loss, but also about things like loyalty and passion and playing it out to the very end. So to me, the Red Sox have always been a perfect metaphor for people's existences on Earth. The Red Sox are so embraced because they're so much like ourselves.
But if one day the gods smiled brightly on the Red Sox and the curse was reversed, what the hell would we do?
There's no pictures. It's like so beyond. You know, the universe goes infinity. Where does it end? Like, I don't know. What would be there? I can't get to that. I don't think of a scenario. It's so, like, abstract.
If the Red Sox win the World Series, first of all, the death toll in New England will be catastrophic. There are so many old people saying, I can't die until I see them win the World Series. They're all going to die. It's going to be worse than the Black Plague.
You could take the St. Patrick's Day parade, the Gay Pride parade, take every parade, including when Lindbergh flew the ocean, and put them all together. It won't touch the partying that will go on here.
It would make the Patriots Super Bowl party look as if it were a couple of people coming over for coffee in the morning.
Boston is going to sink into the ocean. People will be scaling the green monster. You'll see a smile on Collier Yastrzemski's face somewhere, happy, like he had that smile in '67, getting champagne dumped on his head.
People would be dancing with their dogs and drinking all that champagne they'd saved up for all these years. But then, like the next morning, people would wake up.
God, what are we going to do now?
Okay, well, what do we do next?
I don't know what we do with ourselves.
It would be the worst thing ever happened to them because they wouldn't be different anymore. The Red Sox would be just another team. They'd be just part of the apparatus of baseball instead of this doomed operation. It would change the whole mystique of the Red Sox in a moment. The crusade would be over.
We won't have anything else to bitch about.
It would cease to be interesting.
The whole mystique is over, and the interest would really wane. Like if I hit the lottery, would I buy a ticket the next week? I doubt it.
How could you think that you would miss negativeness? But it's more than that. It is like an intricate, emotional story.
It's like reading a long, fascinating novel that never ends. I don't love being a loser, believe me. But I love this story. And if they won, the story would be over. I have no idea how I'll look at them. Who are they? They're no longer this team that everybody has known since 1918. On the other hand, how do you say no to a world championship? You can't.
If they ever won it, would I not care for them as much? I want to find out. I'd love to test the theory.
No, I guess we'll cross that bridge or jump off that bridge when we come to it.
It is a great story, but every story has to have an ending. I'm here to tell you, as I've told my children, as I've told all my friends, nearly all my life, this is the year.
association with Black Canyon Productions, this has been a presentation of HBO Sports, the network of champions.
Bambino.